there are some really good receivers, maybe great receivers, that when their number's called, they're running like their hair's on fire.
Yep.
But when their number's not called or they think they're not the primary read, they're not really running.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Broncos X's and O's, and I'm sitting here next to my co-host, KOA's own, Mr. Dave Logan. What's up, sir?
What's up, Benny?
How are you? I'm great. It's a Monday. We're recording this on a Monday. Broncos win, and they put up 44 points. Last week, we didn't know what we were going to talk about until the fourth quarter happened. This week, we could talk about so much. I mean, I don't even know where to start. I mean, 44 points, shutting the Cowboys offense down. What were your favorite moments from yesterday?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I think just generally speaking, it was great to see the offense get going.
Yeah.
And you know, I think you don't have to temper your enthusiasm, but you have to be real about the fact that Dallas is not good on defense. And they're, you go back and look at that game. When I'm calling a game, I'm just following the ball, and you can't really analyze the game. When you go back and look at the all-22, man, Dallas is not going to win many games. I can tell you that if the defense doesn't play a lot better, or they have to play absolutely perfect on offense. So good to see the Broncos offense get on track. Some young players. To me, it was a little bit of a preview game to what Broncos fans can expect, not only moving on this year, but next year and the year after. You think about some young, talented players. Harvey's, a rookie. Franklin is in his second year. Mims is a third-year guy. Bo's a second-year guy. So, and then you have the old heads like Courtland and like J.K. And so just very impressive, and great to have a game like that.
I thought about that as well, just looking at the film, but then also thinking about, okay, playing in the Sean Payton offense, what Sean has done in New Orleans. This is the most points he scored in the Broncos, in his Broncos tenure so far. But when you think about that and you think about the years to come, that is a really exciting game to watch. And you think about, to me, I think I'm going to buy a Pat Bryant jersey. That's how he catches the ball like a receiver.
He reminds you of you.
No. I didn't catch the ball that smooth. I don't know.
Oh, you had good hands.
I had good hands.
Yeah, you had good hands.
When you think about, I wasn't a great over-the-shoulder catch. That's a hard ball to catch. But the way he catches the ball, smooth in and out of his routes, the out route, the go route. What do you think is the ceiling for him?
I think he's the ceiling. I'm not sure. I think he is what's been apparent in his rookie season, watching him in training camp. And then watching him in these games, and I think he's getting a little more tick every single game. He is really confident catching the ball. Guys that know how to catch the ball, guys that are what I call, whether he's a world-class ball catcher yet, I don't know, but he's a really good ball catcher. It's just a natural thing when you're running, just to put your hands up in that ball. You've done it tens of thousands of times. And the over-the-shoulder catch, it was a nice adjustment on a ball just on the outside shoulder. But two, Bo couldn't have walked down the field and handed the ball to Pat and put it in a more perfect spot. You almost have to catch that ball. But like him, he's tough. He digs out safeties. They told us about that when they drafted him in the third round. And he makes catches when you're supposed to make catches.
He does that, and I hit up Louis Riddick during the game because Louis Riddick actually tweeted out during the game Pat Bryant was a name that he wanted people to watch out for because of his playmaking ability and the way he goes about things. So I tweeted at Louis Riddick and said, hey, what did you really see out of him in terms of his college film? He talked about how he was physical in the run game, contested catches, running through the ball, and he said he reminds him of Michael Thomas, which Michael Thomas was very explosive in this offense. Thoughts there of Pat Bryant being this Michael Thomas, I would say in 2 years.
Yeah, I think that's high praise.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm always a little bit careful when anybody starts talking about a young, really talented guy, and we start sort of comparing him to guys that made a living and did it over a course of many, many years, and they were that guy.
Yeah.
But I think I understand the comparisons, right? I mean, size-wise, his stature, his ability as a ball catcher. The one thing I would say about Pat Bryant, you know, he got knocked coming out of college because he didn't run 4.4, and yet when you watch him run, he's really good out of breaks. He's into and out of breaks. The key, I think, we both played that position. One of us a long time ago, and then me. But I think the key to being an NFL receiver, you have to be. To me, you got to be a great ball catcher, but you have to have the requisite speed to play in the league. You got to be a good enough athlete to play in the league. But then your ability to get into and out of your breaks.
And that's what we're watching right here. I wanted to pull this up to see what you think. Just the way he was able to settle in on this out route.
Yeah,
just catching the ball.
He's running. It's a high-low concept, and you know you got the tight end in the flat. You've got him running a sail route. That's it's a good job of recognizing that it's zone coverage. So you roll that sail route as opposed to a 90-degree cut. So his understanding of what is called upon on that particular route. But just a nice, smooth route runner that really has good feet for a fairly good-sized wide receiver.
Not only did he catch the ball really well, I love what he did in the run game. And then in the post-game press conference, he said he tells the running backs, hey, if you want to bounce it out, come to my side.
Yeah,
I thought they ran to his side. In the game plan, it was wherever 13 was, we're running to his side. And he was even sifting across. And for those who are out there listening to this or watching it, hopefully you're at home and you're not watching this while you're driving.
Yeah, that'd be good, right?
Pat Bryant would be on one side of the formation and then sift across the other side of the formation to block the linebacker or defensive end. That's a want to. And you have to want to do that. And I thought, Sean, he talked about slimming down the personnels and just rolling with certain guys who are willing to be blockers. And I think Pat Bryant's going to continue to get more time because of that.
I'll tell you what else will happen. That kind of effort and that kind of want to that you described will be contagious. Because the other cats in the wide receiver room, when that's pointed out, and you and I both know those coaches are going to point out that effort, that angle, getting in the run game, wanting to go get you some. The other receivers are going to sit there, and not that they don't have capable blockers, because they do, but they're going to sit there and look at that and say, okay, and this is a rookie. I'm going to step up my game.
100%. Thoughts on Bo's performance? 4 touchdowns, 19 for 29, over 230 yards passing. What did you love from him yesterday?
I think what struck me the most about Bo's game, I mean, we've seen him, even when the offense has struggled, I've always thought he was more comfortable throwing the ball on the run. What I saw yesterday was that, plus his ability to stand in the pocket and deliver the ball on time with accuracy. Not that he hadn't shown some ability to do that, but I think we all have different levels of comfort, and all of us are a little bit better at something than we might be at something else, and we want to work on that something else. And I thought Bo was really good yesterday. The timing of the ball coming out of his hand. The first touchdown pass to Franklin on the bender, I'm not sure what coverage the Cowboys are in, other than they weren't covering any, but the middle of the field is wide open. And he in the pocket, he pumped that thing one time and then just quickly kind of shifted his hips and reset his feet a little bit and had a big enough arm to get the ball to the goal line. So I thought he was really comfortable in the pocket, very accurate with his throws. The deep ball that you mentioned to Pat Bryant, perfectly placed. The ball that Court couldn't come up with, and I'm not sure if they would call that a bang 8 or just a bender, but that pass was perfectly thrown. The thing I think with Courtland on that route, receivers, and you know this, receivers, when they run a certain route, you expect when you turn your head back to the ball, you expect to see it, but the ball to be in a certain place as it's already come out of the quarterback's hands. That ball got on Court just a little bit sooner than I think he expected it, and he tried to body the ball and wound up not catching the football, but an excellent throw by Bo.
Yeah, I didn't think he didn't know what to do with his hands. It was like one of these, how do I catch it, or So yeah, it was definitely a, and he'll come up with that when it matters most.
For sure he will.
But I 1,000% agree with you. I think this is Bo's most complete game. He played against Cincinnati. They played well, but in the first quarter, it didn't look great. I think after the interception, which you don't want to start the game like that, he was really comfortable. He saw the field really well. And This is the first time where I have watched a Broncos game where him and Sean actually were on the same page and in unison in terms of the play call coming in to the huddle and, hey, I know exactly what Sean wants and I know exactly what he's seeing. Now, it's against the Cowboys, but regardless, it's still the receivers got to go out there, make plays. They have to get open. But I love the reverse scissor concept. I think Marvin Mims did a great job on the first Troy Franklin touchdown, Marvin Mims taking the safety out of it, and then Troy Franklin coming underneath. But a lot of people need to understand just the importance of timing and spacing. And you talk about timing. Shout out to Williams Jewelers. They always get me right with my time pieces. But Adam Troutman and Atkins on that play, getting to their landmarks, I think is something that's super underrated. You have to have the timing and the spacing. You saw that also on the mesh concept where Troy Franklin had an explosive play. I think things like that, that's the next step for this offense, is doing that consistently.
Well, I think what you're saying is one of the toughest things to ingrain in your receivers. I won't say a lot, but there are receivers, there are some really good receivers, maybe great receivers, that when their number's called, they're running like their hair's on fire.
Yep.
But when their number's not called, or they think they're not the primary read, they're not really running. Mm-hmm. And it's what you're describing is everybody understanding what's important on this play. And there are times when if you're running a clear out, you have to make it look like you're running deep and you're going to get the ball, right? So I thought that, from a receiver standpoint, I thought that, from a play calling standpoint, I thought Sean, it seemed like he really settled in and had a pretty good grasp of what he wanted to do and knew that he could do just about every single thing he wanted to do. And then I think as a play caller and designer, when you start to think that, then you go deep in the bag and you're going to pull out all sorts of things.
Yeah, I think Sean was in his bag. And for those people who talk about Sean giving up play calling duty, it's not going to happen. And you see it right here. We're watching this play right here, and we'll make sure that the audience can see it. But R.J. Harvey comes in motion, and then this is the touchdown that he scored late, but he has the flat route. But you have this mesh concept. They know they're getting man.
Yep.
R.J. Harvey's guy can't keep up. He sneaks out through the offensive line and walk-in touchdown. That's elite play calling. That's what you want to see from Sean, and that's what you hope to have going for the next 9, 10, and then deep into the playoffs. My question to you is, are you more impressed? Now we're going to switch to defense. Are you impressed with the offensive performance, or are you more impressed with the defense and what they did to Dak?
Yeah, I think I'm equally impressed. Again, the qualifier would be that we both acknowledge that Dallas is not any good on defense. I think when you talk about Matt Eberflus, who's the defensive coordinator of the Cowboys, I'll just say this. There wasn't, how would I say this? There wasn't a coach in the building preparing for this game against the Cowboys that didn't think the Broncos offense was going to have ample opportunities to move the ball and to score points.
Yep.
I'll just leave it at that. Now, the Cowboy offense, different deal, right? Number one in points per game, number one in total yards per game. Just top 5 offense in just about every single important offensive category. So I thought the Broncos defense did a couple things really, really well. You got 2 really good wide receivers, and this is before, and we'll talk about the Pat Surtain injury.
Yeah.
So I thought Vance and his game plan, I thought he did a nice job a handful of times pressuring from depth. There have been times in the first, 7 games where the Broncos they'll mug both of those inside linebackers up into the A-gap, and they either drop one out, drop both out, bring both, what have you. It's a nice little scheme. but they're telling you, hey, we're coming. And I thought there were, I don't know, three or four times where he got a free runner at Dak, and he did it from depth. Whether or not that was, they missed in the protection or there was a hot route or whatever. And so to do that, you got to be good in the back end because that takes a little bit longer.
Yep.
Right? If the Dak's second interception to Dondre Tillman was that, and all of a sudden he sees, and I can't remember who the player was, but he sees him off the edge, and then he just throws the ball in the vicinity of the crosser and throws it right to Tillman. So I thought the game plan was really good. I thought the execution by the players against a high-powered offense was good, and you're not going to see a better contingent of skill position players, I think, than the Cowboys have.
100%, and I think we talked about this last week very quickly, but we said that this was going to be a Vance Joseph type of game where he had to come with it in terms of designing the scheme, designing the plan, because you had two number ones. Javonte Williams played well or was playing well.
Yep. And
then also Ferguson, the tight end. Ferguson had no catches. And then if you had to tell me that coming into this game that you were going to lose Pat Surtain for an entire half and you were able to hold CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens under 100 yards, I wouldn't have believed you just based off of, hey, those guys they're number one receivers regardless of who's covering them. So
yeah, and Ferguson was top 5 coming into the game in terms of receptions.
Yeah.
They had 51 catches in the first 7 games. And I thought they did a really good job on him. Jahdae Barron with his first career interception. There's another young dude, obviously first-round pick, so the Broncos love him. Yep. But he gets they're playing some sort of two-man, and he's underneath the seam route and cover 2, and Dak threw it right to him. So just I think lots of things for the Broncos to feel good about. And I think from the fans' perspective, now fans I think can take kind of a deep breath and say, okay, you know what? This is a good young team that is only going to get better, I believe, as the season goes on.
Not only that, I think people can also trust that Sean actually knows what he's doing. Yeah, there's a reason why he is highly paid.
I was trying to convince you of that last week. I thought you were one of the guys that talked about. Was that you?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
A little bit. He knows what he's doing, and I want to – it was super cool to see him give the game ball to the ownership group.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about proper infrastructure and what the Walton Penners are doing.
And smart.
Yeah, smart. Very smart. What the Walton Penners are doing, but George Payton and Sean Payton, the free agency class, you hit on all great culture fits. Evan Ingram, Hufanga, Greenlaw, J.K. Dobbins.
Yep.
When you talk about building a championship team and having a championship team, you have to hit on those things. I'm not going to continue to talk about the 2015 team, but Elway did hit on those guys in terms of
Aqib and Darian Stewart and T.J. Ward,
Emmanuel Sanders,
DeMarcus.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Sean has done a really good job. You want to see Greenlaw on the field more, but I think things are coming along right when they need to. And everybody was talking about the rookies a couple weeks ago. We want to see them more. It's like, hey, this takes time, especially in this offense and this defense. These aren't vanilla concepts or playbooks that these guys are playing in. It was great to see. I just love your initial thoughts on just the rookie performance yesterday.
Yeah, I was impressed with the rookies. I want to go back to what you said about the acquisition of the free agents, and I could not agree more. In training camp, I thought, and I made the comment, watching J.K. Dobbins, I mean, I had a friend of mine say, how would you describe his running style? And I said, he is a professional running back, which doesn't say anything really to people that don't know it. But this dude, he's patient. He understands leverage. He's powerful. He's got some explosion to him. He runs with an attitude. But one of the things that impressed me about J.K. early in getting to know him a little bit was the juice factor he brought to practice. Now, it's in the middle of, or maybe not the middle, late July, early August, and it's 1,000 degrees, and so everybody's tired. And the defense, normally on every team, the defense has more yappers than the offense does. I mean, that's
who they are.
That's how it works, right? And so it was a spirited practice. That one, I mean, they were getting after it. And Malcolm Roach and John Franklin Myers and Coop and some of those defensive guys were getting after the offense. The one guy that was barking back at them in a big, big way was J.K. Dobbins. I'm thinking, okay, that's going to be one of the alpha dogs for the team, let alone on the offensive side. So to your point about the free agent acquisitions, I think, and how important it is to bring in guys, A, that can play, but B, are the right kinds of guys. When you have a young team like the Broncos do, you want those pups, those young players, to emulate guys like J.K. Dobbins and Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw and other guys that you've brought in. Mm-hmm. Not only in how they play, but how they prepare, how they handle adversity, what they do off the field. All those things, I mean, you can come in as a great rookie, but you can also get on a wrong path. And then you're headed into a really bad position. So I applaud Coach Payton and the organization and George Payton for identifying those free agents that still could play, but they were made of the right stuff. When adversity hits, they're going to rally guys and say, "Listen, we'll get through this. You just got to stay the course." You need guys like that.
100%. And Broncos 4-0 in October. Now heading into November, this is where teams start to separate themselves, and this is where it's going to start getting a little bit colder.
Yep.
This is where you have to have a running game. It was great to see R.J. Harvey get going, J.K. with over 100 yards. It was great to see that. But, Dave, I want to ask you now, because the last couple of Super Bowl winners, being the Eagles, the Chiefs twice, and the Rams, all made trades at the trade deadline in the offensive department. The Rams trade for either they picked up or acquired Odell, and then they also traded for Vaughn. Chiefs added McCole Hardman, DeAndre Hopkins throughout the years. Philadelphia last year traded for Dotson, who was the first rounder out of Washington.
Yep.
I am of the belief that, especially now with Marvin Mims maybe having the concussion and maybe not playing this week, that the Broncos should trade for a receiver.
Who you like?
The only person that I think is worth it is Jalen Waddle out of Miami, because he has an element to his game that is not currently in this receiver room yet. Troy Franklin shows explosiveness, but when you're talking about playing beating man-to-man in late November, December, and January, that's what you have to beat. Courtland has already shown that he can do it. These young guys, you played a lot of zone yesterday.
Yeah.
Guys were running wide open. But you're going to be playing man-to-man against Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo in these tight games in late December and January. What are your thoughts on the Broncos being buyers during the trade market?
Well, number one, I like Waddle's game. You're talking about one of the fastest receivers we have in our game. So I like him. Here's where I would push back a little bit on a trade. I would want to make sure if I'm running the team, I want to go out and help the team in an immediate way. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to sacrifice the young guys and the trajectory they have in gaining confidence and playing in big games and figuring out, because to play in games that are meaningful in the league, in November and December and even in January, it's people say, well, they've been this since September, but it's different. Mm-hmm. And so I if I thought I could add somebody, depending on what the price would be, I would do that for short-term and mid-term gains, but I would not want to sacrifice the growth of young players that I believe in are going to be dudes in the next year or 2 years.
Yep.
So the first name that I think of, if you bring in Waddle, the first name that I think of is Troy Franklin. Mm. So whose tick does Jalen Waddle take at key time? Because you're not bringing him in to be a backup and to get 11 snaps a game. Yep. Whose tick does he take, and how does that affect your long-term goals with respect to the team?
So now you're making me really think.
That's not a bad thing.
No. And I think he takes the tick of Franklin, No, I think he takes a tick of Pat Bryant and Marvin Mims.
So is that? I'm thinking about what you just said. Is that a good? It depends. I think it depends on what the team. They wouldn't tell us.
Yeah.
But if you sat down with George Payton and Sean Payton, and maybe they had a couple lattes, because Sean's known to be. He likes to talk when he has a couple of lattes.
Yep.
So, and you said, "Hey, tell me real talk. What's your short-term, long-term prognosis of Pat Bryant and Troy Franklin?" What do you think they'd say?
Well, I think Sean Payton thinks that Pat Bryant is his next Michael Thomas, but that's a couple years away. You're talking about somebody who led the league in catches 2 or 3 years in a row, or at least top 3.
All right.
You know, Pat Bryant's a couple years away from that. I think Troy Franklin has a little bit of Ted Ginn, but is a more polished route runner and catcher of the football. But he's a couple years away. He's a year away from being a 60, 70 catch guy with the 1,200, 1,300 yards.
Now, he might this year, if he stays healthy, he's going to approach 60 this year.
But what about the 1,200, 1,300? It's more of the what we saw with the OTB route that he ran yesterday, the over-the-ball route, where he caught the ball and then he took it 20 yards. If you had that more consistently, I don't think you make the move.
I think the Broncos love that about Troy Franklin.
Yeah.
I think the coaching staff and the front office recognize his ability after the catch. Mm-hmm. I don't think we've seen it yet like we can see it or we will see it, but I think they believe that that's a quality of his that makes him special in the league. So, again, I get back to you get back and we're just sitting here chopping it up about Waddle. I mean, you'd have to, whatever you have to give up, number one, you got to factor that in. You've had 2 really good draft classes, so you want to keep as much draft capital as you possibly can, although if you're going to have the kind of year that you think you are, your first-round pick is going to be relatively low in the first round, although you wouldn't give a first-round pick for Jalen Waddle for sure. I think it just comes down to how much they love those young receivers, and my gut tells me both Franklin and Bryant, they are all in on.
And I'm super high on him. Like, I want a Pat Bryant jersey just the way he's playing receiver right now. Going back to the Sean Payton, George Payton, if we are sitting there having a couple of lattes, my question to them would be now is this your Super Bowl window? Is it now started? Because this is the AFC is wide open, and you have a chance now in these next couple of weeks against the Texans, the Raiders,
Chiefs.
But just these next 2 games, if you're sitting at 8-2, now you're talking about number 1 seed. And I just think you need one more. It might not have to be in the receiver room. I think you need one more explosive player. Maybe it's a tight end. I don't know if any tight ends are out there like that, but I think you need one more playmaker to help Bo out.
Now, that's a whole different topic, right? I mean, I agree with you, and I'm not even sure what tight ends are out there either. But, Evan Ingram is starting to kind of gain some traction, making some catches. Bo seems like he understands that he's a good route runner, got him the ball. Troutman's a solid tight end and versatile. But, if you said, hey, they've got a chance to add another playmaker to that offense, then I'd sit and listen for sure.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do. Trade deadline is going to be 9 days away. At Bet365, they have great offers available for Broncos fans. They have their Thursday night football offer, which is a $10 safety net bet. They have their Sunday night football offer, which is a $365,000 jackpot. Place a $10 bet on the first time touchdown score and get a split of $365,000 in bonus bets if your player scores the final touchdown of the game. Also, with the Bet365 early payout offer, you're a winner if your team goes up by 17 points with an instant payout on straight bets and parlay selections marked as winners. Download the app and use the code DNVR365 when you sign up. Breaking news, Bet365 new customers now get $200 in bonus bets when you bet $5 win or lose. Sign up, use the code DNVR365, deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Disclaimer, you must be 21 years or older, physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply. Shout out to the Gold Crown Foundation. Are you a parent of a 4th through 8th grade kid, or are you someone listening who wants to play in a great competitive basketball league here in Colorado? Sign up for the Gold Crown Basketball League today. The Gold Crown Foundation was started by Bill Hanslick many years ago, and it still continues to be a staple of our community. They have divisions for our 4th through 8th grade teams. They have feeder teams for high school and gold, silver, and bronze divisions. You can play in both high school gyms and at the Gold Crown Fieldhouse. Gold Crown also has leagues in volleyball, golf, flag football. It's a nonprofit organization that serves 18,000 plus kids annually in the Denver metro area. It is also a great way for kids to have fun playing sports while also playing in a competitive environment that is going to help them if they want to keep playing sports in high school and potentially beyond. Learn more and sign up by scanning the QR code on the screen or visiting goldcrownfoundation.com. All right, hey everybody. Now we got Mr. Justin Simmons joining the show, all-pro Broncos legend, one of the best to put on the orange and blue. Justin, man, I know you saw the game yesterday. We were texting about it. Would love to know what you thought about Vance's game plan. I mean, you have an explosive offense, Dallas Cowboys coming in here, playing at an elite level offensively, and Vance puts together a great game plan. What did you think about the game plan overall from the Broncos defense?
Yeah, I thought it was excellent. I thought they executed really well too. I think the trend that you're seeing week to week is teams starting to try to attack Riley, who's opposite of Pat, and obviously teams have to establish the run. And there are a few runs there that that maybe squeaked through a little bit more than the team would have liked. But I thought the overall game plan was excellent, especially when Pat went down. I thought Kris Abrams-Draine stepped up great. Obviously Riley is doing well. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Obviously Riley's doing well. There's a few penalties there. I know things that he would want to have back, but that's part of the game. Sometimes, you get the tic-tac fouls and things like that. But I was really impressed by the defense, man. That front seven is a problem.
Justin, you mentioned Riley, and I when I look at him as a corner, I think he's got everything you need. He's got length. He's got good speed. He's got good size. So playing opposite of Pat, as you mentioned, you're going to get your fair share of work, no question about that. But just as a guy who played in the back end of a defense for a long time, if there were a couple of things that you could say to Riley that may help him in his growth as a young player, people remember now, and sometimes they don't remember, he was hurt a lot, so he's still a really, really young player. What couple of things come to mind that would maybe be able to help him a bit?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I remember even talking to Riley when I was there with him his rookie season, and just telling him like DB and maybe O-line, they have to be like some of the most like thankless positions, right? Like you can make 10 plays in a row, and then the one play you give up is the play that everyone's going to remember. And so when you're a defensive back, I remember, I would tell Riley always think next play. Good, bad, positive, negative, like it's always next play mentality. And, when it comes to with the flags and the pass interference, like a lot of like that call at the end of the Giants game is one of the worst calls I've ever seen, right? Like, yep. Like don't worry about that. But there are a few calls there where he's just getting a little too handsy. Man, I always tell people that the things that matter when you're playing a DB, play with great leverage, be accountable, and know where your help is. And if you lose to the side where your help is not, sometimes offenses get paid too. So you got to find ways to win in positions that the coaches are putting you in. And I think sometimes that's not always happening.
Justin, man, you talked about the front seven being incredible, being all over the place and creating pressure. How does that help the secondary? Take people into the minds of yourself or Talanoa Hufanga or Brandon Jones right now. When you have a pass rush and you have pass rushers like Jonathan Cooper, Nick Bonito, DJ Jones, how does that help you as a secondary defender?
Oh, it's the best thing in the world. It's the best thing in the world. When you're out there and you're only covering for 2 seconds, maybe a second and a half, with Benito's get off, those things make all the difference in the world. Just now, if you're sending more, you could play flat-footed, play the quick game. The quarterback's holding the ball. The timing's messed up. The rhythm's messed up. Like, that's why you see Riley up and pressing all the time, Pat up and pressing all the time, right? Like that, like rushing coverage always help each other out in those scenarios. But and there's nothing better when you're a DB and you get to play with people that can get after the quarterback. It is the best advantage in football.
I asked you about Riley Moss. Let me ask you about Talanoa Hufanga. I mean, plays a safety spot. Enjoyed calling the games and with him in them. I think he's versatile. At least he seems like a good tackler. But when from a former outstanding safety, looking at the Broncos defense and looking at both Brandon Jones and Talanoa Hufanga, what couple of characteristics do each one of those guys have that impresses you?
I just think their motor is elite. I'm watching these guys like in the third quarter, even late in the fourth quarter, and watching them come cap off tackles from 8-9 yards deep. And, I think VJ hit on this in a presser one time. Like, there's plays that you just look on TV and you're like, okay, that was a good tackle. But to see where they came from and to see like that should have been like a 7-yard gain and it was minimized to a 3-yard gain, like that makes a big difference, right? Instead of 3rd and 3, it's now 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7. And those are downs where the rush can get after it. And not to mention, like, I think what's underrated is them in coverage as well. I think they're playing the deep ball well. We're not seeing a lot of explosives, in that regard. I know there's a couple busted coverages, and unfortunately those things tend to happen. But I think those guys are just doing an overall amazing job of just taking care of the deep part of the field, but also coming up and showing up in the run when they're supposed to.
Justin, man, now we got to. I want to know what you thought about the offense. They put up 44 points yesterday. Bo was on fire, hitting all the different receivers. The rookies are coming to play now. What did you think about the offensive performance and how Bo played?
Man, I loved it. Obviously as a Broncos fan, as a former player, like I was so happy to see that they didn't regress to this level. And call a spade. That has to be one of the worst defenses I've seen. I think this season, it just is what it is as a defensive guy, like unsound in the gaps, just not playing with good eyes, not playing good leverage. And when you're a good offense and you take the realm of that, you're supposed to make that defense look like that. I think Sean even said that, right? It's just like they're one of the worst defenses in the league, and we're gonna make sure that they stays that way. And that's what they did. And so, man, it was really cool too. Side note, to watch like the young rookies really take that next step. Like Bryant had a great game. RJ Harvey had a great game. And it was just so cool to see those guys like come into their own because they're going to need them down the stretch.
My last question for you, Justin, when you from a game planning standpoint, when you're looking at an offense, are you looking specifically at personnel like the Broncos offense? I mean, that Franklin can run and he's a threat after he catches the ball. The Court is a big body, his good athletic ability, great 50-50 ball catcher. So you list all the individual traits of the wide receivers and the backs, but how much does that play in as opposed to maybe the scheme and what they like to do from an entire offensive standpoint when you prepare for a team like the Broncos?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think what makes Denver and what makes Sean's offense very difficult a lot of the times when you're prepping for them is the usage of personnel that he does, right? Like, it's not your typical, like, you 12 personnel, you're thinking, okay, 2 tight ends, 2 receivers, there's a running back, and then like he comes out and it's empty formation. And then, he goes 11 personnel, but then it looks like it's supposed to be 21 personnel or 12 personnel, which is like inviting more to the run. And then things like that. Like you saw the 2-point play, I think it was, or maybe when they're on the goal line, they went big personnel and they faked it and it was a boot. And it's just like he's always doing these personnel conflicts, and you can never quite get a beat. And that's why you're seeing like these outside runs, you're seeing these boots, you're seeing zone, and then they take a deep shot, and it's like all these things are catching you off guard. So it's really difficult. It's really difficult to game plan against, and they're doing really well right now executing some of those plays.
And Justin, man, last question, going to bring it back to the defense. They're talking about Pat's going to be out for a couple of weeks. How do you now adjust as a defense with your defensive player of the year being out for a couple of weeks? What do you think Vance will do? How do you think he will approach it? And then from a safety perspective, Talanoa Hufanga and Brandon Jones, how do they help the young corners out, and how do they help Riley out with Pat now being out of the lineup?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be huge, right? Seeing the adjustments that they make. I think VJ's still gonna be aggressive. I think the onus is now gonna be even more on the front seven to get after the quarterback, to interrupt his timing, and make sure that they commit to stopping the run. And then from a secondary standpoint, like, if I was Huff or if I was BJ, it's just re-emphasizing the little details to whatever guy's going to be stepping into that role and playing opposite now of Riley, and making sure that the details, the communication is at an all-time high, not things that we think we know, things that we do know, and make sure that we're executing those things at the highest level. And just re-emphasizing, right? Like, hey, nobody has to be Pat Surtain. It's impossible anyway, but nobody here has to be Pat Surtain. Where you be you, play fast, and let the game take care of itself. But I think the onus is going to be on the front to attack the quarterback and make him uncomfortable, so that because obviously it's going to be a big hit for the secondary losing Pat.
Everybody, that's Justin Simmons. Hey, man, really appreciate you, man. Continue to work on that golf game. I'll see you on the course.
Still waiting on that invite, man. Don't be scared.
All right, brother. Great to see you,
Justin.
Let's see. I think we got some mailbag questions. You good to take some questions,
Let's do
Dave?
it. Let's do it.
Let's see what we got here. Oh, well, we just talked about what trade target would take this team over the top. Well, we know a playmaker. Anybody on defense, you think?
Well,
Pat Surtain being out
we
is...
haven't talked about Pat.
Yeah.
I mean, they're saying a couple of weeks.
I think it's more than that.
And I said it during the broadcast yesterday, and I'm not an orthopedic for sure, but I didn't like the way when he got up and when he started moving his shoulder and he reaches like almost right under his armpit. And then you go back and look at that play. I didn't like the way that looked. So, again, I don't have any inside information. The Broncos are real quiet about that, and that understandably so. But I as we sit here today, I've got some real concerns about Pat and when he's going to be able to come back.
You and I both got some messed up shoulders, and when you're grabbing in the front, that's not shoulder.
Good.
That's not shoulder. So that's something definitely. So maybe it's trading for a corner, a veteran corner. You don't have to. Maybe you can get a fifth or a sixth or something like that. But you might need some depth.
Yeah, you look at him right now, and if Pat is out for the foreseeable future, I think the question is, from a club standpoint, do we feel like we have enough right now to go out and continue to play, to line up against the Chiefs with those receivers? And I think they've got a couple guys back that were injured, and so that's going to be. Do you feel comfortable enough without number 2 that you can line up against about anybody and feel like we can still be a formidable defense? If the answer to that is not sure, then I think you got to look. I think it's
90% sure just based off of your pass rush. Because if you can get to the quarterback.
So you're 90% sure that you can hold up completely in the back end because of your pass rush?
I think the fact that you played the Cowboys yesterday and you held them in check. Yep. Those are the 2 most explosive receivers that you'll see all year. Kansas City's got a good offense, but they don't have 2 alpha number 1 guys that can both have 150 yards a game. So I think you've gotten past your hard tests.
Okay.
So
if they believe what you believe in that case, then they
Buffalo doesn't scare me. Nobody on their receiver room scares me.
They probably don't go out and add a corner, right?
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see. How much of Bo's success is Sean Payton's scheme, and how much of it is Bo playing well? You want me to go first?
Go ahead.
I think yesterday what you saw from the Cowboys is both. I think the plays were dialed up at the right time, and Bo was confident in terms of how he could deliver. There was protection. I think it's a lot. I don't think it will never be, just Bo just playing well just because of, I think it's always going to have a marriage to it or a ring to it in terms of how they are playing together, in terms of how Bo is playing. Bo's in year 2, so he's not calling his own plays. He's not changing anything crazy at the line of scrimmage. I thought he saw the field really well yesterday, but I thought Sean put him in really good positions. He had him on the run a lot. He gave him some nice quick throws. I mean, I love the way sometimes you could start the passing game with just a simple, quick stick route. 5-yard turning in, hit Evan Ingram. Then you hit some other players, but I think it was a combination of both yesterday.
Yeah, I would say I think there is and I mean this in a positive way. I think there is a backyard component to Bo's game that we have seen from time to time, and I feel like I know it's in there. Yesterday, I thought again, Sean created some opportunities for him outside the pocket, but also in the pocket, which, if there's been any questions about Bo coming out of Oregon, people wondered, hey, good athlete, but can he throw the ball downfield and can he operate an NFL offense from the pocket? The answer to those two questions is yes, he can. So yeah, I think it's a combination of both.
Let's move on to the Texans. This is a big game coming up. Texans won yesterday. C.J. Stroud played really well, threw for over 300 yards, 2 TDs. Nico Collins didn't play. But when you talk about, look, their offensive line is pretty bad. So our defense should be able to get home and should be able to lock them up. It's going to be interesting to see how the coverage will play and who will be. I don't think anybody will travel with Nico Collins, but he is a dynamic playmaker. But this defense now, this is not the Cowboys defense. You got Will Anderson, you got Daniil Hunter, and then you got Derek Stingley Jr. at the corner position, who I think is the second best corner behind Pat. So thoughts initially in terms of how the Broncos will approach this game, or what your just thoughts overall of the Texans?
I think, you said it. They're really good on defense. I think C.J. Stroud had such a great rookie season and maybe had kind of a sophomore slump. Yep. They didn't protect him very much last year. I think that Nico Collins is a very tough cover. To me, he's one of the really outstanding young receivers. Combination of size and strength. C.J. Stroud looks for him. He's going to force feed him at times. But to me, this is one of the games where it's a toss-up game. So really important for the Broncos to understand that if we go down there, we just have to find a way to win.
Yep.
Maybe it's a big play in special teams, whatever. Maybe it's a deflection at the line of scrimmage and an interception late in the game. Maybe it's Dobbins. Maybe it's Court coming up with a big 50-50 catch. But I just feel like if the Broncos, this is a game at the end of the season that I think the Broncos will look back upon and say, you know what, man, that was big. And it would be much better if they looked back and said it was big because it continued to propel us forward, not that we went down there, had a chance to win it, just couldn't. 2 years ago, Sean's first year, they had a chance to win down there.
Yeah.
They're driving the ball down there inside the 20-yard line and just don't make the requisite plays that you have to make to win. So tough environment for sure. They love football in Houston, but I think Denver can win this game. There's no question about it.
Got to establish the run. It's going to be interesting to see. You said C.J. Stroud, and he definitely took a sophomore slump, but as a receiver, I'd love to play and be a receiver for C.J. Stroud. He throws a runner's ball. Everything, it's just enough zip, and you can catch and run. Nico Collins, like you said, dynamic playmaker, but 6'3", 6'4".
He's a big receiver.
With Pat being out, they're going to try to find a whole bunch of different ways to get him involved. And then also you got Dalton Schultz, a receiving tight end who's played really well, who's had a long career. What matchups are they going to be looking for to exploit, whether it's Singleton or Greenlaw in coverage?
And they're trying to stay alive.
Yeah,
I mean, Houston with a win yesterday against the Niners at home, they're 3-4.
Yep.
Well, now all of a sudden they're thinking, well, wait a minute, 3-4, we're right in the thick of things.
Yeah.
But there's less room for them to drop one or two or not play well. So I think Houston will come in excited. There is pressure on them to find a way to win, obviously at home. I think the Texans probably look at the Broncos the same way the Broncos look at the Texans.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Good team. But we can beat them.
Yep.
We can find a way to beat them. And when you have both teams that feel the same, you usually get a pretty good game.
They're also going to have that – I hated this coverage, going against this coverage, but like that Seattle cover 3, that San Francisco cover 3, bend, don't break type defense. They're going to – they're only rushing 4. They can get home with 4. They don't have to have a lot of pressure packages. So that's one of the things, this is what we saw earlier in the season when the Broncos played the Chargers. That's the type of defense that this is, a defense that flies around, but they're not going to blitz a lot. So Bo's got to be patient.
Yep.
You got to take your chances when you get them, and you got to hit these things down the field, which Bo did against the Cowboys yesterday. He threw the deep ball, and he gave his receivers chances. So,
and I thought the offensive line was good yesterday.
Yeah.
Really gave him some protection. Will Anderson, Houston feels like Will Anderson, or they feel about Will Anderson the same way that Denver feels about Nick Bonino.
Yeah.
That should put in perspective, really, what kind of front that the Broncos are facing.
It's going to be interesting to see. Everybody, thank you for another episode of Broncos X's and O's with KOA's own Dave Logan, and I'm Bennie Fowler. Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
We all silly like the mayor.